Hello everyone and welcome back to the lecture series of Introduction Optimal Control, and it is the second lecture of this series. So before getting the details of this series, we will try to cover in this lecture about the different types of the optimization problem and the formulation of optimization problem. Then we will try to uh, discuss about the some preliminaries uh, requirement for the you can say the optimization, such as gradient, what is the gradient, and how some types of vector calculus, what are the Hessian matrix, what is the gradient, how the gradient will calculated. And then after the covering of these topics, then we will discuss the meaning of eigenvalue, and then we will try to cover the quadratic function, and then we will try to cover the different problems of definiteness of the quadratic function. In the definiteness of uh, quadratic function, we will cover the semi-definite, positive definite, negative definite, or negative semi-definite, positive semi-definite, and indefinite problems. Okay, and after this, we will cover about the about the stationary point. What is the stationary point? What is the global optima? What is the meaning of? What is the significance of global optima? What is the significance of global minima? And all these. And then we will cover the generalized. We will find, or we will try to derive the generalized sufficient and necessary condition for the optimal control, or optimal value of the different functions. Okay, so from we are starting from now we are starting with the you can say the statement of optimization problem. So as we already have discussed, the different types, the optimization problems basically consist of the optimization problem basically consists of, you can say, one of the objective function, and with objective function is defined with respect to all the variables. Okay, and the variables here defined in this slide is x by x. We are defining the variables x, and fx is our objective function. This is the objective function, or you can say cost function. And our target is to minimize this cost function or objective function. And we have some constants regarding with the associated with this function, you can say. So here there are three types of, you can say, the constants are defined. First is defined by first is defined as, you can say, inequality constants. So inequality constant g subscript s, sorry for here I is written with the continuous of g, but it is the subscript of g. Okay, so g subscript I x. Okay, so x less than 0, less than equal to 0. So this is the inequality constants. Okay, whereas ji, the second function, is the equal to 0. This is the equality constant, this is the inequality constant, right? This is the equality constant, right? And then there is a one another constants here not mentioned, but that is the boundary constant, or you can say the side constants, the boundary constant, or you can say side constant. The boundary constant is defined in between the x is lying between the some value a and b here. Okay, so in this form we have defined the optimization problems. Now come to the different aspects. Here we have written the fx is the function of x, or you can say variable, and x is again you can say it is a vector. Okay, see, this x is nothing, it consists of any value, any number of value x. Okay, now so it means there are two types of basically optimization problem is categorized. First is the unconstant problem, whereas the constant is not there, or another is the constant problem. Okay, So in the next slide, okay, you can say here, you can understand these things with the help of this PPT or this slides. Okay, this slide again state that your target is to minimize the function fx, okay, and with respect to x, and your boundary is bound constant or side constant is x in between the line between a and b, and your inequality constant is given, and equality constant is always is also given, right? So after this, we have defined the different types of optimization problems. Okay, so optimization problem is defined in different terms. First is, you can say, unconstant problems. Second is, you can say, the constant problem. Okay, and third, constant and unconstant. There are these two, you can say, the different type optimization, two optimization problems can be solved or can be solved using different types of approach. Okay, so the constant optimization is here. One method is solved, one method is mentioned, Lagrangian method. However, there are so many methods to solve the constant optimization, including nonlinear programming, soft computing techniques, and metaheuristic approach using the genetic algorithm or using the PSO. Okay, so with the help of NLP, with the help of soft computing, with the help of metaheuristic, with the help of machine learning techniques, we can solve the constant problems. However, unconstant problems also, first one approach is here mentioned, that is the least square method. Okay, so we already have discussed the nature of design variables, static optimization and dynamic optimization. In the static optimization, we already have seen, I think. uh, in the static optimization, we already discussed. So in the static optimization is concerned with the controlling a plant under the steady state condition. That is, the system variables are not changing with respect to time. And the plant equation is defined generally using the algebraic equation. However, the techniques to solve the static optimization problems are generally ordinary calculus, Lagrangian multipliers, linear and nonlinear programming, NLP. Okay. However, the dynamic optimization problems are concerned with the optimal control of plants under dynamic condition. That is, the system variables are changing with respect to time, and thus time is involved in the system description. Therefore, the plant is described not in the algebraic. Here it is defined in the differential or difference equation because it depends on the time. Right? Now the techniques used to solve such type of dynamic optimization are dynamic programming, variational calculus. Okay. So we will try to cover variational calculus in the next coming lecture. Okay. As of now, I'm focusing on only the a point on the optimization techniques. Okay, and the pointage principle. Okay, next is the based on physical structure, optimal control and suboptimal control. So as we will we will progress, then we will see the different types of these problems. Okay, what are these things? Now next come to the next this slide. Okay, in this slide you can say, again I am saying these things. There are, let's say, n variables are there to for the designing variable. Here I am saying the variables are as a design variables. Okay, and it is n x1 x2 to xn. Okay, so using these variables or using these x1 to xn variables, or you can say vector of x. Okay, here we can say this x is defined as a vector of x1, x2 and so on xn, right? So this is the vector. Okay, so this vector is depend on the some function f. So f is the function of, you can say, x1, x2, x3 to up to the xn, or you can say f is simply the function of x, right? Or this is what is x? X is here defined, right? So our objective function becomes fx. Okay, here objective function, or it is the cost function, is defined as the fx, and our target is to minimize this fx. However, it's subject to the some boundary condition, and the boundary condition has a three parts. First is the equality constant, that is hi x1 to xn equal to 0, and gj x1 to xn less than equal to 0, where j is varying from 1 to m and so on. And there are some boundary condition, or you can say side constants. Xi is lying in between x1 xi lower bound. Okay, you can say here with the help of picture, this is the xi, I the subscript l is the lower bound, and u is the upper bound. Okay, I is varying from 1 to n, so these are the side constants, right? So it means the constant optimization problem has three parts, not three parts, you can say the four parts. First is the objective function, second is the equality constant, third is the inequality constant, and fourth one is the side constant, right? So this is the problem. Okay, now we are coming to the gradient of a scalar. Basically, there are some preliminaries requirement of mathematics for to understand better of the optimization techniques. Okay, so first we have to understand what is the gradient. What is the gradient? Okay, gradient of a scalar. So gradient of a scalar is nothing but it is basically the differential form of, you can say, differential form of partial differential form of del t by del x, del t by del. So let's say here in this case here, suppose T1 is the temperature. Okay, and this temperature is depending on the different coordinate x, y, z. Okay, so it is depending on the three-dimensional coordinates x, y, z at p1 point. Okay, at p1 point x1 y z, and t2, suppose t1 is the temperature at p1 and t2 is the temperature at p2, right, as shown in the figure. Okay, so it means T1 is the temperature here, T2 is the temperature here, right, at the different you can say coordinate. So P2 coordinate is some difference of, you can say, some perturbation value, or you can say we have added some dimension in x, y, z, and we have arrived at point P2 from P1 point. Okay, so P2 is just an extension x plus dx, y plus dy, z plus dz, and hence you can say, uh, the dl, we have defined the dl, the differential distance. This differential distance, that is dx is nothing but, you can say, the dx is nothing but, you can say, dl dx is nothing but the x plus dx minus of x. Okay, similarly for the y and similarly for the z. Okay, so this defined a dl vector. Okay, this defined the differential distance vector dl. Dl is nothing but, you can say, the dx ax plus dy ay plus dz az with the unity vector ax ay az. Okay, so the differential temperature, okay, so the differential temperature becomes what? T2 minus T1, and this T2 minus T1 is dependent on the coordinates and given by delta T by del x dx, delta T dy dy, and delta T dz dz. Okay, so this is the situation. Next, when we define these things, however, what is dx? Dx is nothing but, you can say, dl into x, right? Similarly for the dy, similarly for the dz. So dt is defined ultimately for the delta t by dx ax plus delta t by dy ay plus delta t z az into dl. So this is the scalar, this is the gradient. Okay, gradient of a scalar quantity, and we can find out these things with the gradient of a scalar t. Okay, so let's see here. Focus on this this slide. Okay, so gradient of any function fx, let's say x is, again I have already told, x is the vector. It consists of n value, n number of x value, x1 x2 x2 up to the xn, where x is defined already, where x is defined x1 x2 xn. Okay, and now the gradient of this function fx is defined as del f by del x. X is again x1 x2 x3 x. we are differentiating the function f partially with respect to x1, x2, x3 and so on. Okay, so here we can define as this one, del f is df1 del by f by del x1, del f by del x2 and so on, del f by del xn, right? Or we can write this into the transpose form also. Okay, okay. So see here, this is the one example I have taken for the demonstration. Calculate the gradient vector f for the function. So this is the fx is equals to x1 square plus 2 x1 x2, okay, plus 3 x2 square plus 4 x1 x2 3x3 plus x3 cube. Okay, now we have to find this gradient of function at 1 to 0. Okay, so the optimal value, you can say, suppose we have to find the gradient at the value at the coordinate 1 to 0 transpose. So okay, now how it is calculated? So we know how the gradient will calculated. The gradient will calculated with the help of this formula, with the help of this formula. Okay, so we are applying this formula, del f by del x1, or calculate the differentiating fx with respect to x1. Just come to the 2x1 plus 2x2 4x2 x3, and f is the differentiating with respect to x2. We got 2x1 plus 6x2 plus 4x1 x3. However, when f is differentiating with respect to x3, then we got 4x1 x2 plus 3x2 x3 square. So when you put the value of x1 x2 x3, when you put the value of x1 x2 x3 in the respect in place of x1, we put 1, in the place of x2 we put 2, and at the place of x3 we put 0. When we put this value, we got 6, 14, 8. This is the your gradient of the function calculated, right? This is the function calculated. Okay, so I think sorry, okay, sorry, yes, so it is clear. Now come to the Hessian matrix, the gradient of function. So now we will try to calculate the second derivative of function. Okay, second, when you calculate, okay, how the minima or maxima, you have already learned in the 10th or 12th classes the concept of maxima minima. Okay, so how we will find the maxima or minima? First we will find the first derivative, and then it put equal to 0. Then at that value we differentiating the second, we take the second derivative and then put the value, or when we got the maxima, or where we get the negative value, then we say that the maxima, or when we got the positive value, then we say the minima. So same concept is here applying to find out the optimality condition. Okay, so in order to that, when we are going to find out the second derivative of the real valued function, here the function is the function of the some variable x, vector. Okay, so f is the function of vector x. Okay, so now see here how it is going to calculate it. Okay, so here you can say this delta 2f. Okay, second derivative of this is del f x of del x of del fx, right? So it is the delta 2f of del x square. It means what is the meaning of del f of del x? What is the meaning of del f of del x? It is nothing but this value, del f of del x1, del f of del x2, up to the del f of del xn. Okay, now the second derivative, what it means second derivative? So now we have to add the second derivative into this. So we have to derive the del f of del x of what? Del f of del x1, del of del x2 and so on, del f by del x1. So using this value, again this x is nothing, this x is the function of x1, x2, x up to the xn. Now when we find out the value delta 2 by del x, delta 2f by del x, so x is where x1 to xn, when calculate this one, when this is calculated x1 square, it becomes x1 square, it becomes when respect to x1, so del f by del x1 del x2. When it calculated del f with respect to x1, so it becomes del f delta 2f by del x1 del xn. So in similar way, when this function, okay, when the same function this is derived with respect to del of del x2, then it comes to del f by del x1 into del x2. And in similar way, when you find out the derivative of this function with respect to x2, it becomes delta 2f by del x square, and so on. When you derive this value with respect to x2, then becomes delta 2f by del x2 into del xn, and so on. And lastly, when you calculate it with respect to this function with respect to this function with respect to xn, then we got the last column of the square matrix, and this matrix is called Hessian matrix, or Hessian matrix is generally the symmetric matrix. Okay, symmetric matrix. So when you calculated the same gradient, when you calculate the same gradient, okay, 2x1 plus 2x2 plus 4x2 x3, del f by del x2 2x1 plus 4x2 plus 4x1 x3, and del f by del x3 4x1 x2 plus 3x2 square. When you calculate the second, so this is the first gradient matrix. Now your target is to find the second order second differential, or you just have to calculate, let's say, Hessian matrix. So how the Hessian matrix will calculated, see here in the slide. Now the second matrix, the second order, or you can say the Hessian matrix, is calculated at del 2f by del x1 square. So you have already calculated del f by del x1. You already have calculated del f by del x1. Now you have to find del f by del x1 square. So it becomes only 2. Okay, it becomes only 2 here. It is only become 2, right? You can say here. You see, you can visualize here. Okay, you can visualize here 2. When you calculate the del f x1, this value, you can say this value, sorry, the delta 2f by del x1 x2. So delta 2 by del x1 by x2 is calculated. Okay, you can calculate from this value, or you can get the same, you can get the in similar way, right? So you can got this matrix or Hessian matrix, and when you put the value x equals to 1 to 0 at place of x1 x2 x3, we got this Hessian matrix. Okay, we got this Hessian matrix 228 264 840. Now the problem is how you defend, or how you can say this matrix is either the minima or maxima, minima or maxima at this value 1 to 0. We don't know. So for that we have to calculate the you can say the condition, necessary and sufficient condition, right? So I'm recalling the Hessian matrix again. So conclusion is, my target is to learn you guys for the how to calculate the gradient matrix, and then you have to calculate the Hessian matrix. Now come to the what is the significance of Hessian matrix, what is the meaning of first gradient matrix in this series. Okay, so recall to the Hessian matrix. Hessian matrix is, let's say, z is equals to fxy is defined. Let's say f is the function of x and y. Okay, two variable x1 x2, or you can say xy. Now Hessian matrix is nothing. When you find, it becomes f xx fxy fyx fyy. It means it is the you can say symmetric matrix. Okay, it is the symmetric matrix. Now what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? Now You try to understand it. It is very important. And what I'm saying, because the Hessian of an equation is a square matrix. Okay, when you calculate the eigenvalue, when you calculate the eigenvalue of this Hessian matrix, there is a square matrix. Okay, and when you calculate this eigenvalue of this that square value with the help of, you can say, any algorithm or by the manually, but it's not possible to find out manually or the eigenvalue of large matrix. Okay, a huge matrix. So you can apply the MATLAB program, or you can say some eigen command. Okay, and you can find out. Okay, so now due to the Hessian matrix, because the Hessian matrix are symmetric matrix that I already told you, the original and transpose are the same. They have a special property that their eigenvalue will be always be a real number. So it is a very beautiful things. Okay, Hessian, the eigenvalue of the Hessian matrix is always a real number. So only thing of the concern is whether the eigenvalue are positive or negative. If it is the positive or if it is the negative, then we can decide the different things, right? So now come to the next slide. Okay, so if Hessian matrix at a given point has all the positive value, okay, has all the positive value, then you can say, this is the wait for a minute, okay, wait for a minute. Okay, if the Hessian matrix at a given point has all positive eigenvalues, okay, when all the positive eigenvalues are there of any Hessian matrix, then the matrix is, you can say this matrix is a positive definite matrix. And it is very important. Try to understand. I am repeating once again. If you calculated the eigenvalue of any Hessian matrix and all the eigenvalue of the Hessian matrix is positive, then you can conclude that the Hessian matrix is the positive definite matrix. Okay, this is the multivariable equivalent or concave map. Okay, so the figure 1, the upper figure in the left hand side, the upper figure, it denotes the concave curve. What is the meaning? I will demonstrate you later. After some time, wait for some time. Next, if all the eigenvalues are negative, then the Hessian matrix is said to be the negative definite matrix. This is the concave down. Okay. Now it is also possible. The possibility is also there when you calculate the eigenvalue, and some value may be the positive, some value may be the negative. Okay. So another possibility is if the either eigenvalue is zero. If all the eigenvalue is zero, then you will need more information to see what is going on. And if the eigenvalue are mixed, that is what I said, some values are positive, some values are negative, then you have some saddle point. Saddle point, what is the meaning of saddle point? It is like an inflection point. Saddle point means, you can say here, the value is, you can say, later we will see later in the you can say, more detail we will focus what is the saddle point. Okay, so it is just like a inflection point, and then some inflection where we are changing from one curve to nature curve to the another nature of curve. That point is known as saddle point. Okay, where we are changing the transition. So here the graph is concave up in the one direction and concave down in the other direction. It is for the eigenvalue of that type of where the some value are positive and some where are negative. Okay, so this is the some problem given for you for the assignment. Okay, and you can calculate up to this point using Julia to find out the eigenvalue of the given Hessian matrix. Okay, tell whether the function at point is concave up or concave down or saddle, whether the evidence is inclusive, right? But before going to that, I want to mention some 2 points in the constant optimization. Okay, I want to take some new slides, blank slides. Can we add here? I think no. No problem. No problem. So let's say in the constant problem, there are two types I want to mention here. Let's say this is the one graph. Okay, so most of the functions we examined were unconstant. Let's say I'm taking another second type of function, and you can understand with the help of this, you can say, things. Okay, so there are two differences between the two curves. Okay, the function, you can say, in the first function there are no boundary, or the boundary were very soft. However, in the second situation, it involves boundary. It involves boundary, right? What is the boundary? That boundary is this one and this one. Okay, so a constant is basically a hard limit, okay, placed on the value of variable, which prevents us from going forever in a certain direction. Okay, now come to the another things. When you are talking about when you are talking about the linear, suppose that linear function, right? Let's say this is the boundary. Okay, and you have taken, let's say you have taken the, this is the linear function. Okay, this is the, let's say, linear function. So the maximum value is found at this boundary, and the maximum is found at this boundary. Okay, up to this value, up to this boundary, the maximum is this one. Up to this boundary, the maximum is this one. What it means? What does it means? It means with the linear function, I am repeating once again, you can write down, you can pen down it. It is a very important line. With the linear function, the optimum value can only occur at the boundary. Okay, with the linear function, with the linear function, the optimum value, okay, the optimum value can only occur at boundary. Correct? You can see from the previous figure but that I have drawn. Now come to the previous one. Come to the non-linear type. When you're talking about the non-linear, whenever you're talking about the non-linear and the constant optimization type problem, let's say our curve is non-linear and varying like this. Okay, let's say the curve is varying like this. Okay, so in this curve you can say the maxima is occurred at 2 points in the boundary. First is here, the first one is this one. This is the maximum in the interior. Okay, and this one is the minimum. This is the minimum in the interior, this is the maximum in the interior, right? However, when you taking the second case, right, like this one, see carefully, I'm changing the pen. Wait, let's say this one, let's say this one. This is the nature of the curve, let's say. Okay, so it means you can say here, this is the, sorry, sorry, what I'm doing. Okay, let's say this is the case. Okay, Now from this case you can say the boundary is the maximum. The maxima and the minima is found only at the boundary from this non-linear condition. Okay, so in the non-linear case you can say, in the non-linear case you can find out the optimum value. The optimum value, that is maybe the maxima or minima, can find out at anywhere or between them, either that occur at the boundaries or you can say in between them. There is any chance to find out the where the value, right? It may be the combination of both. Let's say I'm seeing the third case so that you can understand it. Okay, let's say this is the nature of the curve. Okay, this is the nature of the curve. Okay, so with the help of this, the maxima is found out at this point, okay, and the minima is found out in between them. So the maxima is the boundary, however the minima is in between them. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion is, with the non-linear function, the optimum value, either the maxima or the minima, can either occur at the boundary or between them. So nothing is in that issue. Okay, now so these are some problem given. Okay, there are some problem given, so that you have to find out. Okay, so you have to find out this value, right? So you have to submit these questions by doing yourself to this as assignment work. Now come to the quadratic function. Now before going into the quadratic function, okay, before going into the quadratic function, I want to introduce some stationary point. What is a stationary point? Okay, then we will discuss what is the meaning of global maxima, global minima. Okay, then we will come to the quadratic form. Okay, so first, what is the meaning of a stationary point? Let's say this is the curve. Okay, and just I want to zoom out this curve because you can understand it more in ease, with ease. Okay, so here up to this value, you can say fx is less than 0. However, in this fx is increasing, fx is greater than 0. However, this point is the fx equal to 0. This is the minimum value. This is the minimum value of this function. However, when you talking about this function, fx is equal to 0 here, and this is the maximum. Fx is less than 0, okay, and fx is greater than 0. F dash x is greater than 0. When you differentiating the value, as you differentiate the value, f dash x will less than 0 we got. And when you are from this side, when you differentiate the function, you got the greater than 0, right? In the third case, when you come to this, like, okay, so what you got when you differentiating the function, okay, f dash x is greater than 0, or when you find the double differentiation, f double dash x is also greater than 0. In similar way, when you are differentiating below f dash x, when you got f dash x less than 0, and when you take the second derivative, then it got also the less than 0, right? But what about this point? What about the transition point? Some point is here, that is the transition, where there is change in there is nature change in the you can say the curve is occurred. Okay, where is that point? That point is called the inflection point, or you can say the stationary point. The stationary point, that is the saddle point. Okay, the inflection point is originally a saddle point. So a stationary point may be the maximum, maybe the minimum, or maybe the inflection point. Okay, I think you understand these things. Now come to the what do you understand by the global maxima or global minima. Okay. Now I'm drawing some picture so that you can understand it. Let's say this is the sorry. Um, let's say this one is the fx. Okay, y-axis f represent x fx and it represent x. So based on this, I have drawn some function curve like this. Okay, like this. So this function, let's say this is a, okay, and this is the end of the function at point b, let's say. Okay, now let's say this point is a1, this point is a1, this point is, let's say, b1, let's say this point, okay, I'm talking about this maximum value a2, let's say this a2, this point is, let's say, b2, and this point is, let's say, a3. So I want to mention here a1, a2, a3. When you focusing about when you talking about the point a1, a2, a3, what is denote? A1, A2, A3 denotes here the relative maxima with comparison to B1, B2, right? However, when you're talking about the B1, B2 point, B1, B2 representing the minima, relative minima. Okay. However, what about the global maxima or global minima? You can visualize, you can easily understand which one is the maxima, which is the global minima. A2 is the global maximum, however, the B1 is the global minimum. So this is the concept, okay? Okay, this is the concept by which you can understand what is the meaning of global maxima or global minima. Now come to the what is the condition, okay, what is the condition for this finding the maxima or the minima. So before going into the details of that, I want to discuss about the quadratic function now. Okay, so in the quadratic function, okay, come to the quadratic function, it is very important. So any quadratic function, you can see here, I'm just talking about this function, you can understand it very easily. Let's say f is the function of x1, x2, two variable. F is the function of two variable x1 and x2. Okay. F is the function of x1 and x2, two variable. Okay. And f x1, x2, let's say fx1, x2 is equals to ax1 square, bx1, x2 plus cx2 square. This is the quadratic form. This is the quadratic equation written here. So can we write this equation in the form of this? We have participated, or you can say we have taken the we have you can say the x1, x2 vector. We have written the coefficient ABC in the square matrix AB0C, and we have taken x1, x2 and transpose of x1, x2 and multiplied this. When we have taken the multiplication of all this value, then we got ax1 square plus bx1, x2 plus cx square, right? Come. Similarly, this matrix, this coefficient matrix AB0C is represented by P matrix, let's say. This P matrix may be represented A0BC also. When you multiply, we got the same things. Or we represent A minus B, 2B, C in the same also. But when we will writing this, generally we write this equation P matrix in the form of symmetric matrix. Due to the advantage of symmetric matrix, okay, we utilizing the advantage of symmetric matrix and representing the what is the advantage of symmetric matrix? We have already seen the eigenvalue. The eigenvalue, if the symmetric matrix is existing and the eigenvalue of all this means the positive, then you can say the positive definite function. What is the meaning of positive definite function? We will see later. Okay, after 2 to 3 minutes it will clear. So the symmetric matrix, that coefficient matrix P is represented in the form symmetric matrix, and when you multiply this coefficient x1 x2 to this value and then we multiply it again with the transpose of x1 x2, then we got the same quadratic equation. However, it this quadratic equation f of x1 x2 comma x1 comma x2 is represented by x transpose px. P is this matrix, x transpose is this one, and x is this one. So x transpose px is the quadratic form. It is very important. Okay, now come to this. So a quadratic form of n variables, okay, fx1 x2, this is the x transpose px. If the p is not symmetric, what happen when p is not symmetric? So we can make any matrix as a symmetric matrix. How? You can see here. So if the p is not symmetric matrix, then 1 by 2 of x transpose, okay, p, okay, x or plus 1 by 2, that we have, what we have to do, we have to you can say that p matrix, we will take x transpose px equation in the form of this one. Okay, we have to take that equation in this form, 1 by 2 x transpose px plus 1 by 2 x transpose px. Okay, we can write this equation is like this. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to 1 by 2 x transpose px is here, no problem. Now take the transpose of this matrix. Okay, now this equation, so it becomes x transpose p transpose x. Okay, now what happened with this, when you take the transpose, x transpose of transpose becomes x, p transpose of transpose p, okay, p of transpose p, okay, and x this becomes, okay. Now when you take the common x transpose, so when you take this one p plus p transpose by 2, this becomes a symmetric matrix. Okay, so we can convert any square, we can quadratic form into the we can convert this coefficient matrix p into any time in the term of symmetric matrix, right? So you can understand better here from this value, this in this slide. So here q is defined. Okay, q is defined here. Okay, q is defined here, x1 x2 a1 a11 x1 square x1 2 x, it is given. Okay, again it is the quadratic form. Okay, so it is defined here in the next, here we have taken in the 2 variable, we have to be taken the 3 variables. Okay, now we have taken defining the q matrix in the generalized n value, n variables. Okay, we have defined this in the n variables. Now when you generalize the quadratic form, okay, when you generalize this quadratic form, this, when you generalize this one, this is the generalized equation of any aij xi xj. Okay, now what is that matrix, that p matrix? Here it is represented by a matrix. So this matrix is given by a11 a12 a1n. Okay, a11 a12 up to the a1n, a21 a22 up to the f2n, and so on. So this matrix becomes like this. It is very easy. I think it is no problem to in understanding. So you see here this quadratic form, is represented in x1 to up to the xn, and this is the transpose. Okay, so this is the matrix, right? So we can x transpose px, again it becomes, and this is the, or x transpose ax becomes, and this is the quadratic form. Okay, so this is the quadratic form, and with the help of this quadratic, you can see from the one example, 5x1 square minus 10x1 x2 plus x2 square, and we have written this 5 minus 5 minus 5 1 with the help of this. So how it is written, 5 is taken here, 1 is taken here, and minus 10 is represented in minus 5 and minus 5, and then it is uh, divided, okay, and it is written. So with the help of this we can write, okay. So now what is the symmetrization? So you can symmetrize this one, okay, by this equation. As I told you, this is the minus 1 by 2, okay. Same things here, same thing here, a plus a transpose by 2, okay. The concept is very clear. I think we have already discussed. Now come to the positive definite, negative definite, and all these things, okay. So now I think time is going very fast, okay. 50 minutes, okay. Okay, in 5 minutes I will try to cover these two things. So what is the general example? What is the meaning of this quadratic form? What is the significance of this quadratic form, right? So let's say when you define q, the variable q, the function defined contains of the function variable xy, and it is defined as x square plus y square. When you are taking any value of x and y, when you will take any value of x and y except 0, it always comes positive, or all non-zero value. It means it is the positive definite function. When you take the curve, we will discuss about the curve, how the curve will comes of this positive definite function. When you talking about a minus x square minus, when this function is defined as a minus x square minus y square, whatever you will take the value of x and y except non-zero, except 0, okay, then it comes always the negative, and therefore it is called the negative definite function, okay. When the quadratic form qxy equal to x minus y whole square is non-negative. Why? Because whenever you take the value of x and y, either the positive or 0 or the non-zero, for non-zero argument, such forms are called positive semi-definite. Let's say we have taken x is equals to minus 1 and y equal to, let's say, 1. So it becomes minus 1, minus 1 or minus 1, it becomes 2, minus 2, because whole square 4. Again it is the 4, okay. When you will take the value, so it is either positive or 0 or non, for non-zero, so it will come positive or 0. When you take 1 and minus 1, let's take, if you will take the value of x is 1 and y with the minus y value is also 1 1 1, or you can say when you find the value of qxy at 1 1, then it will give the 0, okay. So it will, this function will either give the positive value or give the negative value, or give 0 value. The 0 value when when the x is equal to the y, okay. When the x is equal to y, then qxy becomes 0. So such type of function is said to be positive semi-definite. Either it's the positive or the 0. Same, the quadratic form qxy is defined as the minus of x minus y whole square. So it will either the value the negative or the value 0. So such type of function is said to be negative semi-definite, okay. So with the help of this is some example is given, so you can understand this. Now come to the you can say the picture. So this picture is very beautiful, and you can understand with the help of this picture. So in this plot we see 5 distinct behavior, right? A B C D E. So the form in the first picture A, okay, never takes on the negative value, and only vector is its kernel, is the 0 vector. That is, qx is greater than 0 for all the non-value, for all the non-zeros vector x, right? For any value of non-zero vector x, the qx will become always greater than 0, okay. However, in the second picture, or the second B picture, okay, the property is what? Qx is less than 0. X is always, I am saying x is a vector, okay. So qx is less than 0 for all the value of non-zero vector s, okay. However, when so these two, one A and B, okay, we say that these forms are either the positive definite or the negative definite respectively, right? So first is the positive definite and second is the negative. Qx is greater than 0, it means positive definite. Qx is less than 0, it means negative definite. However, come to the C picture. C shows a form that takes on both positive and negative values, okay, positive and negative values both, okay. And we conclude that such a form is indefinite. However, come to the D point, D picture. When you come to the D picture, D and E are very similar, okay. D and E are very similar to those in figure A and B. Okay, DA is equivalent to A and E is equivalent to B. What is the difference? Difference is in the range. When you're talking about the range, it D includes zero value also. Okay, 0 to infinity. However, E pictures taking from minus infinity to 0. So the difference is very clear. The difference is very clear. Figure D and E both have non-trivial kernels. Okay, and we say that the form in the D is positive semi-definite. That means Qx is greater than or equal to 0 for all the value of x, but that there is some non-zero vector x, so that Qx equal to 0. And similarly, for the figure E, okay, for the figure E, it is the negative semi-definite, okay, or you can find Qx less than or equal to 0 for all the value of x, but there is some non-zero vector where Qx equal to 0, what we have discussed in previous lecture. Okay, now I think I am stopping this lecture, and we will proceed for the next we will discuss in these things in the next lecture, upcoming lecture. Thank you very much.